Good morning. Welcome to Tarrant Area Food Bank. We are glad that you're joining us for our organic pest control class. Thank you for spending your time with us this afternoon. We are going to be talking about a number of different organic pest control options today. My name is Lauren. I work for Tarrant Area Food Bank. You'll normally find me out at the Tarrant Area Food Bank Learning Garden. I hope that you'll come out and join us to volunteer and learn more about hands-on gardening. Now, today we're talking about a topic where my knowledge is definitely better than my practice. This is something that I tend to leave longer than it should. So this is my goal for 2021 and fall of 2020 is to be working more on our pest control out of the learning garden. So we are an open garden, and so we work very hard to use safe pest control measures. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different options with that today. As you are joining into our class, I hope that you will please chat in your name. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you garden, if you're new to this, if you love pest control, or if it's something that you're just starting to learn about. We would love to know more about you as we are in this class together. This is a great opportunity for us to have some discussion. So I hope that you will please chat in any questions that you have throughout the class. Please feel free to chat those in at any time, and there will be specific times that I ask, if anyone has experience with a certain product, and we hope you'll chat in with that as well. Just a little note, when you are chatting in, if you would like your response to go to all participants, there is an option, there's a drop-down option in your chat box. Make sure that you choose that so that everyone else can benefit from your knowledge as well, because we want to make sure that we're sharing ideas all together. Now, we are in Tarrant County in Texas, so know that the tips that we're giving, the insects that we're talking about, are going to be related to our area. Just a note for those of you who are joining us through Eventbrite for our class today, there are actually handouts attached to that Eventbrite link. Please make sure that you access those. It has a list of some great organic pest control options. And then we have also included some information about good bugs and bad bugs in the garden and healthy ecosystems, because that's a really important part of making sure you control insects. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who've just joined in, my name is Lauren. Welcome to Tarrant Area Food Bank, and we are mixing up some organic pest control options and talking about some others. The great thing about organic pest control is that this is a good, healthy part of a good ecosystem in a garden, and a lot of the pest control options can be mixed up right in your kitchen. These are things that you can do at home, great project to work on in the heat of the day. Go ahead and get it ready so that you can put out your pest control in the early evening, when the direct sun is not hitting you and also your plants. It is best to put most pest control options out on the garden when you're not in the hottest part of the day, the sunniest part of the day. That's for two reasons. One, most of our insect pests are more active in the evening, and most of our pollinators are more active in the day. So we want to really target this towards our pests that we want to control, not towards our wonderful butterflies and bees and wasps that are helping us in the garden. So make sure that you're timing this right. It also adds the benefit that it's not going to burn your leaves or be as likely to burn your leaves. A lot of organic pest control measures do have some type of oil in them. And when you put oil out on your plant leaves and then the sunlight hits them at noon, you tend to get some scald on your leaves, and you want to avoid that. Another note, as we start all of this process, is that we want to use pest control measures as part of an integrated pest management system. So we want to start by having a healthy garden. That's the most important thing. We want to have healthy soils. We want to have our plants have enough nutrients in the soil, be getting enough water, not too much water, not too little. We do have other classes that go into more detail about things like healthy soils, how to plan your garden. So we hope that you'll join us for those as well, for more details about how to create a healthy ecosystem to begin with. Less stressed plants equal less pests. Pests tend to attack plants that are stressed out for some reason anyway. Maybe they don't have enough water, maybe they're brand new, you've just put them out into the garden. Texas summers can be really tough on plants, so it's a good time to make sure that you're taking care of all of their needs, and that way you won't have to fight off the insects that are coming to eliminate the weak plants. Now that said, even the healthiest of gardens will get a pest crop. So once you do see pests on your healthy plants, the next measure is to really let the insects fight it out. You want to make sure that you're encouraging the positive insects in your garden that can control the ones that you don't want that hurt your plants. So we want to make sure that we're encouraging things like ladybugs and trichogramma wasps. You can get a little tag of trichogramma wasps at your local garden centers. This is something you can hang out on the limb of a tree. It is just a little square piece of paper that hooks onto a tree limb. Go ahead and hang that out in spring or early fall when you don't have quite as much heat, and you want to make sure that you're not putting that out in direct sun. It's really important for the health of the little trichogrammas that hatch out. 1 tab is perfect for our 1/4 acre garden. So that kind of gives you an idea of how many to buy. They're so small that you might tend to want to stock up and buy a ton of them. If you have a lot of acreage, that might be good for you, but if you're on a small garden, you really don't need more than 1. Another beneficial organism that we put out before we start in on any of this kind of pest control is beneficial nematodes. This is a really important preventative control measure that you can also pick up at your local nursery. It comes in a little container, and all you do is keep those in the cooler until you're ready to put them out. When you're ready to put them out, go ahead and spray down the soil in the area where you want to apply. Do this in the cool of the evening, both for your own sake and to help the nematodes survive. Go ahead and mix up your nematode container. Follow the directions on the package. You don't have to remember what I'm telling you. All these directions are on the package. Just have a 5-gallon bucket that you can fill with water. You're going to dump those into the water, let them sit for the time suggested, and then you're going to want something to strain out the medium that the beneficial nematodes are attached to. So have some kind of sieve or sifter that you can run those through, some kind of window screen to really get it all cleaned out. Then you're going to mix that up to the dilution that's recommended. You can either do that with a sprayer that connects to your garden hose, so you put the concentrate in the bottle and then hook it up to your water hose and you can spray it out that way and set it to the dilution rate that's needed. Or you can just go ahead and dilute that yourself in something like a spray bottle, or I'll show you in just a minute a few larger spray options, which can be a good thing if you're doing a larger area. So we want to encourage that type of insect control, encourage our bees, encourage our wasps. Bees are for pollination. Things like red wasps will actually eat some of our pest insects like potato beetles. They're really good help in the garden. So we want all of those, the little trichogramma wasps that I talked about, parasitize caterpillars. So they will actually lay their eggs in the caterpillars, and that can help control your caterpillar population as well. So we're going to talk about some other products that you can buy in just a minute. But first, we're going to mix up a few things that you can do right in your own kitchen that help so much to control a lot of the insect pest problems in your garden. So the first thing that a lot of organic gardeners will tell you is garlic pepper tea. You want to use garlic pepper tea. This is a great, simple thing that you can mix up. Just fill your blender up with about halfway with water to get started. Then you want to make sure you've got your safety goggles on, right? We want safety first, protect our eyes. This is especially important, and gloves are especially important if you are sensitive to capsaicin, which I am. If you are working with hot peppers and you get this on your skin, you may feel that for a little while, and if you get it, you can feel it. That's why we're wearing these. So all you do is take 2 hot peppers. Now, these cayenne peppers that are a little bit small, they're great for this size, but they're not a giant jalapeno. So I'm going to go ahead and make this really spicy, and I'm going to put in all 4. But we're going to strain this out, so I'm not even going to worry about cutting this. I'm just going to throw it in with the tops, and we're going to blend that up. Then we're going to put in 2 garlic cloves. Same thing. I'm not going to waste any time. Already my goggles are fogging up, so just let me clear those real quick so I can see you a little bit. And then we're going to throw in our garlic cloves. Leave the papers on. We have other things to do. We don't need to spend time chopping those at the moment. Make sure your lid is on securely. Okay, so you can see how quickly that mixed up. Now you can use jalapenos, habaneros, cayenne, any kind of hot pepper for this. The hotter the better, as far as keeping insects and pests away. You can blend it up at least this much, but if you want to blend it a little bit longer to really puree those finely, that's fine too. This is a great deterrent. So after we let the bugs fight it out, right, the next thing we want to do is prevent insect damage. Prevention is always better than trying to fight a battle after the fact, right? So what we're going to do is just strain this out. We're not straining this because the pieces of pepper or garlic are bad for the plants. They're not. But we are going to put this into a sprayer, and they are not good for the sprayer. They will clog it up. So we're just going to strain it out as much as we can. If your strainer mesh is not very fine, you may even want to run this through a coffee filter or cheesecloth or something a second time for a second strain. And we're just going to put that right in the sink back here so that we have it out of the way. And this is our concentrate. I mean, it's pretty easy, right? So I have a little bit of water mixed into this. To make our concentrate, you're going to use this half a blender mix, put it in, and you're just going to fill it up to the top with your water. That's it. Then your concentrate is made. So the important thing here is to make sure, you'll see I'm using a funnel just so I'm not splashing this all over everything. The important thing is to make sure that you store this in the refrigerator, because of course these are peppers and garlic, right? So once they're mixed in with water like this, if you leave this out on the counter and then come back a few days later, when you open it up, you will be in for an unpleasant surprise. It will not only smell strongly of garlic and pepper, it will also smell strongly of rot. So let's don't go there. We're just gonna make it easier on ourselves. I'm just gonna fill this up with water to the top so we can get our concentrate. And then when you're ready to use this, you can just mix a 1/4 cup of your concentrate to a gallon of water. And just kind of eyeball that. So you might want to keep 2 gallons. These are just empty milk jugs or empty water jugs, right? And you can just keep that one in your fridge with your concentrate. Make sure you label it concentrate, right? And then you can see the quantity, a 1/4 cup to the gallon is written right on this. That way you don't forget, so that when, you know, a week or 2 down the road, you're mixing this up in your spray bottle, you really don't want to forget how much to put in and put in 2 cups, right? Or not enough to be a deterrent. So keep this one in your fridge, then keep a second empty water bottle that you can just mix in your 4th cup concentrate to. Then it's ready to go in your spray bottle, and you can spray that out on the plants. Make sure you get the tops and the undersides of the leaves where pests like to hide out. And you can actually spray that every other day in the evenings, and that's a great deterrent to those pests that like to eat your plants at night. I see a question come in, and it sounds like the handout link isn't working. I will make sure that that gets to you. So that will, and I think you probably already saw a chat, but we'll make sure those handouts get out to you. Those of you who may be joining us later after the class closes, we will make sure that the handouts are available to you as well. So that's how you make garlic pepper tea. Does anyone have questions about how this works, or any other questions coming up about garlic pepper tea? It looks like there's one coming in. So while I'm waiting for that question about garlic pepper tea, I just want to point out a couple of other things to you. I'm going to close this up because that pepper is really strong. You can't smell it from where you are, but wow, I'm glad I have my glasses on. How long does it last in the fridge? That's a really good question. At least 2 weeks. I have not tried freezing this. If any of you have tried freezing this, I would love to know that. I would think that you could even measure this out into 1/4 cup servings and freeze those little 1/4 cup blocks, like in a little plastic Tupperware, and put them in a plastic sealed bag, and that will store it in the freezer, and then you could just pull out 1 block, thaw it, and be ready to go. And then, I mean, it'll last for 6 months at least in the freezer. So someone please try that. I'm going to try that, and then I'll let you know how it goes, okay? And you let us know how it goes. Someone has asked, how effective is this? This is very effective. This is a great deterrent for a host of pests. So this is one of the most recommended organic pest control measures. And the best thing about it for me is that it deals with the problem before there's a problem. It keeps the insects from wanting to be on the plants. The reason that I tend to leave insect control, pest control until the end is because I love the insects. I think they are fantastic. I think they're amazing. I don't love killing insects. That's not one of my favorite things that I do. And so if you can deter the ones that hurt your plants before you even have a problem, that's less insects that you have to deal with later. That saves you time, and it keeps you, if you're kind of like me, it keeps you from having to squash as many bugs. I would use this on any vegetable crop. I don't have any qualms about putting this out on any food crop. This is the nice thing about having things that are made from supplies that you find in your kitchen, so you know this is a safe thing to use. Now, I tend to not apply this directly to the food. I try to just keep it on the leaves. That's primarily because if you want to harvest the vegetable the next day, you're going to get a little bit of garlic and a little bit of pepper, right? Which might make it a little bit spicy. And you want to make sure, if you're harvesting it for other people, you want to make sure that you are not accidentally putting pepper and garlic on food crops that aren't labeled as having pepper and garlic on them, right? So I recommend putting this on the leaves anytime. Every other day is a great plan. And then I would wait 24 hours before you harvest. So, you know, if you're applying this every other night, then I would do your harvesting on the off days, right? So when it's been a full 24 hours, that's just a good practice. If you are using purchased insect control, you need to read the label and make sure that there's not a window of how long you need to wait before you do harvesting. Does it deter any good bugs? That's a great question. And at when do we apply it? What stage of the life cycle of the plant? These are some great questions. Thank you guys for participating so much in this. As far as at what point of the life cycle of the plant, this is fine to put on immediately. This is a really mild, remember, you're not putting the concentrate out. You're doing 1/4 cup to the gallon. So this is a very mild deterrent. It's not something that's going to hurt the plant at all. If you want to wait a couple of days before you apply it, that just for the plant to get established, you can. But really and truly, it may even, sometimes when you first put new transplants out into the garden, one thing that happens is they get really stressed, right? They're going from an indoor environment in a little 4-inch pot out to a garden, and that's a big change for a plant. And so this can help to fight off insects during that time of stress. So I don't have any issues putting it out right away. Somebody let me know, please, if you've had a different experience with that. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten the other question already. So I think we had another, is it deterring good bugs? So the other, it can deter a few good bugs, but remember you're going to apply it at night. And our pollinators, our good insects, are really more active during the day, which is what we love because we like to see them during the day, right? So if you're applying this at night, really the effectiveness of it has worn off more by the morning, and it's not going to be harmful to the pollinators. So that's one of the reasons we recommend it, is you don't have anything to lose and you have everything to gain. Does it help with whiteflies, aphids, powdery mildew? Yes, there's actually a list on your, this is the handout. Well, you're not going to be able to see that well, but it's coming to you. So this actually will tell you aphids, mites. It's going to be effective on whiteflies, caterpillars, thrips. This discourages a lot of your insects that are going to be in your garden. It will even, things like leaf miners, that make the little holes in your garden, in your plants, beetles. This is going to deter a lot of those insects. So this is one of the kind of go-tos. I see another question coming in. I love this. You'll have some great questions. If those of you who have, what about fungus? So powdery mildew. We're going to talk about fungus. So this is not as much of a deterrent for powdery mildew and fungus. I apologize. I sort of lumped those all in together. Now that I finished mixing this up, I'm going to go ahead and lift I just realized that I've been talking through fog this whole time. So I'm supposed to see you again, or at least for you to be able to see me, for powdery mildew and fungal issues. What you want to do there is baking soda. So here's our go-to for household product for fungal issues. So here we're talking about powdery mildew, all the things. What you're going to do here is mix up 4 teaspoons of baking soda with a gallon of water. Just mix those up. If you have another, this is the way to go, right? Just keep a lot of gallon jugs. Put your baking soda in, just shake it up really good. You've got it ready to go. This will keep on the counter. You don't even have to freeze it. Then you can apply this with a spray bottle. And that, if you have crops that get powdery mildew a lot, frequently have fungal issues, I would just start applying this pretty early on. As soon as the plants are, about to a decent size where they're going to start production, that's usually when I start to see the powdery mildew, is when the plants get a little bit larger. But you can start this right away. It's not going to hurt your plant. It's a good idea to put in about a teaspoon of soapy water, about a teaspoon of soap in with your mixture as well. We just use an organic soap. This has vegetable oils instead of petroleum oils. This is another great household insect control because it acts as a suffocator. So this is for soft-bodied insects. Sometimes all you need is soapy water. So you mix these two together, it's going to help the baking soda stick to the plant better to help control your fungal issues. Now you can also put a teaspoon of soap in with once you're mixing up, I wouldn't put it in your concentrate. But when you're mixing it up into your spray bottle, go ahead and add a teaspoon of soap there as well. It's just going to help it stick to the leaves a little bit longer. Again, it has oils in it, right? So that's why we do this, another reason that we do this at night. For fungal issues, the leaves staying wet can actually be a problem and increase the fungal issues. So if you want to do this early in the morning before the sun comes up, instead of doing it at night, that's an option. Or you can still do it in the evening, like apply this in the evening. Just make sure that there's enough time for the leaves to fully dry before dark. It doesn't take too long in Texas anyway. So great product. You can just use if you're having aphid problems. Now, aphids, spider mites, my first go-to is going to be a hard water spray, right? Just take your water hose, set it to a hard spray, them off. They're really soft-bodied. That's probably going to be enough to kill them. If it's not, your ladybugs haven't wiped them out, your hard water spray hasn't wiped them out, that's when you put a bit of soapy water or a little bit of soapy water in with your garlic pepper tea. So I hope that answered all of the questions. If you have any more related to that, please text them out. You'll see another house a lot. This is molasses. This is liquid molasses. In just a minute, I'll show you dry molasses as well. We use both. So this is a good product to mix in with something like garlic pepper tea when you're applying it, or we're going to mix it in with our orange oil, citrus spray in a little bit. This is a really great deterrent for some insects as well. It can help the health of the plants. It's just a good product. We also mix this in with our fire ant drenches, so we'll talk about that in a minute as well. I want to point out to you that it's really important. I hope that you can see the label on this bottle. It's very important for us to label any containers, right? Because this looks a lot like Kool-Aid. We don't want this to be in our refrigerator and have a child pour themselves a nice glass of Kool-Aid and get a horrible surprise. We don't want to mix up one batch of something and then later wonder what was in it before and put something else in that might not be a good mix. So reused milk jugs are easy to come by at no cost. So go ahead and get one for every single different product you have and label them and put your recipe on so that everyone who sees it will know exactly what's in there. Same thing with your spray bottles. I'll probably say that again before we're finished. So that's what we're going to do in our kitchen area. And then we're going to actually move just over here so you can see some store-bought products. While I'm moving, what you're going to see come up on your screen is the recipe for the garlic pepper tea. And I hope that's true. And it's not true. So you may not see the recipe come up. You may just see the camera move, but the recipe will get to you one way or the other. So we're going to just scoot right over here and you'll join me in just a minute. Oh, I guess you're coming with me. That's great. So we're just moving some of these products. These are all organic, natural products that are approved for organic crop production. But just because something's organic and natural doesn't necessarily mean that we want it on our countertops where we're preparing food for people, right? So those are all things that we could eat or use in the kitchen environment. These are products that typically are not used in the kitchen environment. So we wanted to set them out over here so you can see those a little bit differently. So I wanted to talk to you first about some of our hand control items where we're trying to control things without even having to buy a product necessarily or a pest control, something that we're applying. The first best pest control, once you decide you have a problem other than hard water spray, is your hands, right? If you have tomato hornworms, if you have potato beetles, if you have harlequin bugs, if you have any of those pests that are bothering you, even squash bugs, if you just have one or two, just scratch them with your hands. Put on gloves if you want to, and get those off. Then what you can do is actually use a dust buster. This is especially effective for squash bugs. So if you have a whole batch of squash bugs running around on your plants, just water the ground. That's going to make them come up from the ground where you can see them on the plants, and turn on your dust buster and vacuum them up. Now, if you are particular about your vacuum, you can always get one that's dedicated just for pest control. That would be fine. Or you can just use this and then empty them out into a bag and let them feed chickens or something if they're an insect that your chickens like to eat. I did want to point out to you our sprayers. Now, the little hand spray bottles like this one are fantastic if you have a small garden. If you have a larger garden like ours, you're probably going to want something that holds more product and that takes less squeezing motion to do this for 4 hours. It gets kind of tiring. So these are air pressurized, and then you just spray it out. they work really well. So I wanted to show you that there are a couple of options. You'll notice we label these as well. So do that. These are a couple of other non-traditional pest control items that I like to have on hand. A lint roller works really well. So you can use this for something like eggs, flea beetles. So if you have eggs of squash bugs, you could just roll them off if you're not getting them off by hand. You can use this for flea beetles under the leaves, and that works really well. Remember, your garlic pepper tea is going to be a great option for deterring flea beetles. Good control measure. Tape. I've heard people have really good success with, this is packing tape. You could use packing tape or kind of a foil tape to wrap around the stems of your squash plants. That can be a deterrent for squash vine borers. They're a hard one. Beneficial nematodes are going to help discourage squash vine borers, but they're a hard pest. So you can do garlic pepper tea directly on the stem. You can wrap some tape around the base. You can try any number of things. I have heard that it's very, very effective to use something like Bacillus thuringiensis, that's BT products, and mix up a solution of that and actually inject it into the stem of your squash plants. I have not done that personally, so if you have experience with that, please, I would love to hear your feedback on that as well. So we've kind of talked about some of our applicators and our hand control measures. I wanted to show you some of the commercially available products that you can buy, right? So these are all products that we use when it's kind of gone a step beyond what we can control with soapy water. Hopefully you don't get there, but these are helpful measures if you do. Diatomaceous Earth is a really great product that we use. It is powdered sea creatures, fossilized sea creatures, right, from long ago. This is just a silicate that helps to desiccate, dry out the insect. So it lacerates the outer coating, the exoskeleton or the skin of the insect, and then it dries them out. And so it's a great thing to sprinkle on the ground when you put out new transplants. It's a great product if you're having any insect that crawls along the ground. We put this out every time we put out a transplant. We just sprinkle a little bit around the base. This is my favorite applicator. Just a little kitchen Tupperware, a little bit of window screen. Remember to label it so that no one thinks it's powdered sugar. It is a food grade diatomaceous earth that we use. So this is so safe that it's actually mixed into things like pet food. That doesn't mean we should want it to be eaten necessarily in our environment, right? So label it so people know what it is. When you hear people talk about DE, this is what they're talking about. All you do is just sprinkle a little bit around the base of the plant, and that's going to be a great way to let your little new baby plants get established before they start being attacked by insects. This is another type of applicator for dusting products like DE. You can get these, sometimes they will even have little curved fluted spouts. We have tried to use it this way to apply it to the soil. You can actually put it up. It works better this way to dust on the undersides of the leaves. That's really what these are intended for. And because what we tend to use DE for is sprinkling on the soil, I like this container better, the one I showed you earlier. But you do have this option if what you're trying to do is dust on the leaves, and that's really helpful. Now, we talked about fungal issues earlier. So I did want to point out sulfur to you. So this is just dusting sulfur. So you can actually just use this as a powder. You could sprinkle it. You could, make a little container kind of like this one for your sulfur and sprinkle it around. It's great for fleas, chiggers. If you're having any kind of problem with powdery mildew, black spot, sulfur is a great option, just like baking soda. So this is something you can sprinkle around the base of your plant. You can even powder puff it, right, and kind of dust the leaves. If you're having a serious fungal issue, sometimes I'll just get a sock and just put it in there and kind of dust the leaves. Now, this is also something you can dust your ankles with, so you don't risk getting ticks or chiggers. It's a great control measure for that kind of thing. So great product for that fungal issues we were talking about earlier. I wanted to point out a couple of granular items that we put out. We talked about the liquid molasses earlier. This is dried molasses. So this is just a dry horticultural molasses that you can mix in with your soil amendment. So when we're creating healthy soils at the beginning of our planting season, we're going to mix in some dry molasses with it, along with our compost and all of our soil amendments, because healthy soils tend to discourage things that we don't want, especially fire ants. Dried molasses is a great fire ant prevention. So we will tend to mix this actually directly into our soils, and then when we have a mound of fire ants, we will do a soil drench, and we're going to mix some of that up in just a minute. We're actually going to mix it up as a spray version, which you can use for insect prevention, but you can also use it in a large gallon-sized container as a soil drench for your fire ants. So I'll show you how to mix that up in just a minute. The other granular product is also something we use for fire ants. This is corn gluten. You just buy it in a bag at your local garden center. And we put this out on our fire ant mounds. The fire ants can't digest it very well, and so they don't like it to be on their mounds. Just reading a quick question real quick. Could DE and sulfur be mixed into the soil or only dusted? That's a good question. It's not going to hurt to mix it into your soil, but really those are effective on the surface, so it's not going to be a problem for your soil or your plants to mix it in, but to get the maximum value, put it on the surface, because the issues that it controls are on the surface, right? So that's where your fungal spores are going to be when they splash up onto the leaves, right? So if you have fungal issues in your soil and you water and those splash up onto the leaves of the plant, that's where you're getting the fungal issues on the leaves. So that's why we put the sulfur there or on the leaves. Diatomaceous earth is to control those little insects that are on the ground. And so if you have it mixed in down deep, it may help you with something like fire ants mixed in. Sometimes you can use diatomaceous earth as a help with fire ants. Fire ants are hard, as anyone who lives in this area will know. We have tried just about everything. We start with beneficial nematodes, we use a little diatomaceous earth. That does help to lacerate the fire ants' exoskeleton. We use corn gluten. I find this helps more to make them actually move and change locations. They'll change their mound from here to here. When they do that, they're more above ground. They haven't dug down deep into the tunnels. And then the next day, I'll do my soil drench. And that way, I can actually get to all of where they are. Sometimes that's the hard thing with fire ants, is they're so deep, you can't get all of them. When we do our soil drench, let me just go ahead and mix that up so that you guys can see kind of what we're talking about there. Now, soil drench, I would tend to do, usually I'll just do that in a gallon bucket, because this is not enough for fire ants, right? This is something that we're using when you get your recipe. You're going to see this as a citrus spray as a pest killer. The orange oil that we're going to add to this is very, very effective at insects. I have used it even on things like wasps. You can use it on fire ants. The orange oil can actually burn through, and so that's how it kills the insects. So this is a great pest control. You just want to use it really safely. So again, with the goggles, back on with my safety glasses. Take care of your eyes, take care of your hands, right? I'm even going to cover my my fingers here on the end, because this is a very concentrated orange oil product. And even though it's a safe product and an organic product, it's also straight orange oil, and you can get a chemical burn from it. So you don't want to mix more than 2 ounces with a gallon. Now 2 ounces, if you're like me, you don't work in ounces a whole lot, right? So 2 ounces is the same as 4 tablespoons for a gallon of water. Now what we're going to do, this is significantly less than a gallon. So what we're going to do is about half a tablespoon. I'm going to use my funnel again. I don't want to miss and spill this on my hand. So what we're going to do is a half a tablespoon. I have a whole tablespoon, so I'm just going to fill it halfway. And we're just going to do a half a tablespoon for this thing. You don't have to use the full amount. This will be plenty. And then we're going to do half a tablespoon. I'm going to go ahead and put the cap back on my citrus oil because you do not want to knock this over. And remove all of the everything from your table. Use a safe space for this. Now, this is just the molasses that was post-date in the kitchen. So we're just going to mix in a half a tablespoon of that as well. This smells fantastic, by the way. I wish that you could smell this. This smells like oranges and molasses, so it's almost like we're making a cake in here. Not for eating, but you will enjoy applying this to your garden. And this is a great question. The question that just came in is, could you use essential oils instead? Yes. This is citrus oil concentrate. Most essential oils, like if you buy orange oil, do the same thing. However, if you buy it in this kind of size for horticultural use, you're going to pay a lot less than if you buy the same quantity in small essential oil bottles. Because essential oil products are really sold more for household use, they tend to be higher priced. So you can also make this in your own kitchen with orange peels or lemon peels. So if you're wanting to keep this low cost, I would recommend buying the concentrate in a large size or make your own. And I do not have the details of how many orange peels would be needed for that, but I will, if anyone is interested in doing that, I'm happy to get that information to you and we can email that out after the class is finished. So if you'll excuse me for just a second, I'm going to set this down. I don't want to put it on my plastic tabletop because I like my plastic tabletop. Thank you for being patient with me. I did not want to eat a hole in my plastic. Probably wouldn't happen right away, but just in case. So now we have our product. Make sure it's closed all the way. Shake it up. This is not something that we have to sift. It doesn't have any problem going through the sprayer. If you have mixed in something like garlic pepper tea, of course, anything that has particles, you want to make sure you kind of run that through. That's it. That's our spray. That's the same thing we would do at a gallon size if we were doing a soil drench. I used to use a product like this. This is a backyard bug destroyer to mix in with our fire ants. It's a great product. You can mix that in with your soil drench as well. I just find that this is very effective. If you mix in a tablespoon of orange oil to a gallon of water, add a tablespoon of molasses. Usually for my soil drenches, I'm also going to add in a teaspoon to a tablespoon of soap. And then I just stir up the pile, wear gloves. I promise you'll thank me for that advice. Get a long stick. Stir up the mound, then drench. I use a whole gallon for most ant mounds. If it's really tiny, maybe you can get away with half. Really, a gallon's not enough for some of the large mounds. So don't be shy about using enough. Let me go ahead and take these off, and then we'll talk about a few other products. If there are any questions about fire ant treatment, happy to address some of those. The reason we put out corn gluten is partially, again, to make them move before I drench them, but it also is really helpful for our volunteers, and it could be helpful for you as well, because it's a lighter color than the soil, and it helps to mark the pile, the mound. The mound is going to be the same color as your soil. So if you have a lighter color, you're less likely to step on it. We also put out red flags to alert people to fire ant mounds. It's just a way to keep people safe. So I hope that those are helpful tips for you as well. A couple of other products that I recommend having on hand for more serious infestations. We talked a little bit earlier about BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, which I talked about using that for squash vine borers. This is also an effective treatment against anything that's caterpillar or caterpillar-like, right? So if you don't want to pick tomato hornworms off by hand, that's my preferred method, and then feed them to somebody's chickens or iguanas. Tomato hornworms are a very nutritious food for a lot of animals. So if you can do that, do that. But if you need to control them or loopers, if you're having a big problem with caterpillars or moths or whatever, you can use this product. This is just BT dust, and you can just dust it on the leaves of the plants. Now this will affect the caterpillars that turn into butterflies as well. So read, as with any product that you buy at the store, whether it's insect control, whether it's fungal control, whether it's plant food, read the instructions. Very, very important, because each brand, they have slightly different concentrations. So you don't ever want to just hear me say how much to apply. Always read the directions and apply exactly as the label says. Always use safety measures when you're applying these, even no matter how safe they are, right? But you just use this as a last resort more, or if you've already tried the other control measures, and that way you're not inadvertently affecting the other insects that you want to keep. This is a product that you can actually use. This is a Slugo. This is something that has iron phosphate, and it has snail and slug bait in it. So this is approved for organic control measures. If you have tried Diatomaceous Earth, you have tried live traps. And when I say live traps for snails and slugs, what I'm talking about is wet cardboard or wet newspaper. If you have laid down wet cardboard or wet newspaper overnight, usually that will catch a lot of your roly-poly bugs, that kind of thing, and then you can just scoop up that cardboard and throw it away. That's your first control measure, right? Second control measure might be something like Diatomaceous Earth. Sometimes people will use crushed eggshells because they're also really gritty and grainy. Bake those in the oven. Make sure you're killing any bacteria or boil them. Run them through a blender or a food processor, grind them up, and then you have a powder that you can put out on your garden. This does two things. It makes sure you have some of that like desiccating kind of material. It's not really a desiccant. It doesn't really dry them out as much. It's more of a lacerating effect because they're sharp. Even if it doesn't work for pest control, it's great because it adds calcium to the soil. And that's a really effective way to make sure things like tomatoes aren't getting blossom end rot. Plants need calcium, so there you go. Start with that. If that's not working, you can use a product like this iron phosphate that has the bait mixed in, snails and slugs in your garden as well. So keep that on hand those times when you absolutely need it. Now, I want to show you this one as well. Spinosa products are an option for organic. This is something that you can use in the garden to help control and prevent insects. So you can see it'll usually tell you on most products, it will tell you what can be controlled by. It's right on the front. So if you're curious, if you're looking for something that's an effective product for what your problem is, ask someone at the shop if you need to, or just look at the front of the container. This is something that you can use for squash vine borers. It's a product that you can use for any of your, it'll tell you can use it for spider mites. You'd have to have a pretty serious infestation, right, to have to go to something like this for spider mites, but sometimes that happens. So product to use as a last resort maybe, because it does have low toxicity to humans. And I shouldn't say more importantly, but it's very toxic to honeybees. And we don't want to hurt our honeybees, we need them. So if you are using this product for some more severe infestations, just make sure you read the label, apply it at the right times of day so that you are less risk to yourself and to our pollinators. You will notice that that's a frequent comment that I make, right? Is we want to be safe, we want to make sure that we are having a healthy garden, and we want to make sure we're taking care of our pollinators. Do any of these products work on larger pests like squirrels? What a great question. Squirrels, raccoons, other small rodents and mammals can be a pest, right? Usually the recommendation that's a good deterrent for creatures like that is something like cayenne pepper, just a really hot pepper flake. Garlic pepper tea can be a light deterrent, but if you sprinkle something like chili powder all around the base of the plants, none of us like to have pepper in our eyes, right? Creatures like rodents and mammals that eat with their hands and then touch their eyes also don't like chili pepper on their face. So that's a good deterrent, safest deterrent, if you're seeing a problem like that. So none of the products here are things that I would recommend for squirrels. But chili pepper can be pretty effective. Anyone else have success with other rodent and or small mammal options? Now, some small mammals, depending on what they are, you can catch them in a live trap and actually have them removed to a safe location. You do want to be fair to the mammal as much as possible, right? Remember that that's their home where they already know the territory. So moving is hard, so you want to do that as a last resort, but it is an option. Physical barriers can be a good option. That was a good question. So if you have, for instance, we had beautiful little cantaloupes on a trellis, and we had squirrels that would hang on the trellis upside down and eat our melons. They would just hang on the trellis and just eat those cantaloupes. They just loved it. It was fantastic. So I got the great idea that I'd do a physical barrier. I'd wrap those in kind of nylon stockings, right? And that would keep the squirrels away. They just ate right through it. So physical barriers are a great option if you can find one that is actually a physical barrier to the particular creature that you're trying to deter. So you want to make sure that you are thinking about how clever the animal is. If you're dealing with a raccoon, there will be few physical barriers that are going to keep a raccoon out. There you're looking at maybe chicken wire completely around your garden. If you want to go do that and have a completely chicken wire enclosed garden, it's going to be very safe from mammal creatures like squirrels and raccoons and all of those things, anything that can't dig under the fence. So that's a good place to start. The other nice thing about that is that it lets pollinators through still. If you're using something like bird netting, birds are wonderful. We love our birds. And sometimes they like to eat tomatoes. They get really thirsty in the summer. They need water. And so if the only water source they have is your tomato, they're going to eat it. So I have used bird netting. The problem with bird netting is that, number one, they can still eat through it. Same thing with squirrels. Number two, sometimes other creatures will actually get entwined in your netting. It's a hard thing. It's a sad thing to have to deal with, so you may not want to do that. Gophers, I don't have good tips on gophers. I would love for someone else to share if you have good tips on gophers. I would love to learn from your knowledge on that. And I will do some research, and if I find some good stuff, I'll email that out to you. We are just about at time. We appreciate you joining us today. I hope that you will join us on Eventbrite, just as you did today. If you're joining us on Eventbrite for more classes, you can also join us at TAFB.org to learn more about our community garden program and more about the services that we provide to the community. We hope that you will visit us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We'll have many postings of several of our other classes. So we thank you for joining us. If you have any last questions, feel free to chat those in, and otherwise we will see you soon. Thank you. Bye.